What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 58 of the show. I am Jennie, and I help multi passionate creatives like you kick overwhelm to the curb and fit all your shiny objects into a life and business you love. I am so excited to bring you today's guest, you guys. Nicole Riccardo is the queen of no BS. She is going to tell you exactly how it is so that you don't waste time spinning your wheels on stuff that doesn't work. It's so refreshing, and I cannot wait to dig in. So here is the scoop on Nicole Riccardo. She is a business coach and marketing strategist, digital course creator, and founder of NR Media, which is a digital marketing agency for other coaches and creatives. But she is also a professional flutist who has performed in Carnegie Hall twice and received a recording offer from Naxos, the biggest classical music record label. But she's also a psychic medium and paranormal investigator and has the Real Ghosts of podcast that has been featured on TV and radio. And that is not even it, y'all. She is so multifaceted and interesting and so full of good information. So let's get to it, shall we? Hey there, Nicole. How you doing today?
Good. How are you? So excited to be here.
I am so well. I am super excited to have you just because I feel like we have a ton of things in common. The multi-passionate thing, obviously, but we both have a love of like horror and metaphysical and paranormal. And so like I am super excited to dig into that too. But let's kind of begin at the beginning. So you are a business coach and a marketing strategist and a digital course creator and all of these things. But before you were these things, you were a flutist.
Yeah.
Did you think that was going to be like your forever profession? How did that all unfold?
Oh, yeah. When I when I was in seventh grade, in all of my infinite wisdom, I made the decision I am going to be a professional flute player. I want to be principal flute in an orchestra. And, I'm textbook Enneagram 3, type A, Capricorn moon, all the things, right? So of course I was very like nothing was deterring me from that. I like ate, slept, breathed flute. For middle school, high school, I went to a performing arts school. I did the local youth orchestra, did my bachelor's and my master's in flute performance, the whole ordeal. Yeah, I really thought
Wow.
that was it. That was going to be my forever.
That's so interesting because I think for a lot of multi-passionates, it's we're constantly ping pong balling back and forth between things that we like. So the fact that you from such a young age were like, this is it, this is it, this is it. So when did you figure out that this wasn't it?
Uh, well, I think this is a bit of a loaded question. It was a process. And honestly, now I kind of refer to it as like there was like a mourning period almost of me like really letting go of that dream that I had been pursuing for so long. But really how the transition happened is, you graduate school, wasn't making enough money, had to get a 9 to 5, the usual, and then eventually got sick of it, was like, man, I'm going to start my own thing. So that's what I did. And when I was doing that, I was teaching music lessons, which I also, to be really honest, like don't really love, have never really loved doing that. But to me, it was better. Like I would rather do something music related and get paid more for that versus being a 9 to 5, so it's kind of pro con. But as I was doing that and, I finally like transitioned fully, I was working for myself full time. One of the things that I had always said when I was still really actively pursuing like taking auditions, this is what I want to do. I want to be a full-time flutist. I would always say, I just wish that I could be making my own schedule and be able to practice like 5 hours a day, whatever, because then I know I would be able to win an audition. Okay, well, then I was working for myself and I had the time to be able to do that. And I still wasn't doing it. Right. So eventually I kind of started looking at myself and I'm like, well, what's the disconnect here? Like, I have the opportunity now to be practicing as much as I would need to be in order to win an audition. I know if I did, I could win an audition, but there's still like, I'm not doing it. Like, there's something where my heart just isn't fully in it. And it wasn't until I taught my first online course, my very first program, which I still run today, is called Create Your Career. After I made the transition, I was getting questions, like multiple questions a week of people reaching out, like, oh my God, how did you do this? How'd you get out of the 9 to 5? How'd you start your own thing? Like, how'd you get all these gigs and these students and da 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 da? I was like, you know what? Okay, here, like, I'm just like, I'm getting so many people asking me. I'm just gonna do like a little live group program, and I'm gonna teach you how I did it, right? And so I went through that very first round of the program, and this was back, like, I literally had no clue what I was doing. I announced it in one Instagram post, okay, like, oh, I'm doing this program, blah blah blah. And I think I had like, I don't know, like 20 people or something sign up. And so we did the course, and over the course of that, watching other people like literally quit their jobs using what I had taught them to do, and using these methods, using these strategies, finally being able to like take themselves out of like what I had been, you know, friggin' miserable, super depressed at a 9 to 5, really unfulfilled, and finally being able to actually generate money just by doing what they love. I kind of had this moment where I was this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm meant to be doing. And yeah, that was the moment for me. But I will say, even after that, I still did take a few more auditions. I wasn't ready to kind of like fully let go, you know, that then we're in that like mourning period. But it wasn't until actually the very last audition that I took, which I think was maybe a year after at this point, I took the audition, didn't get to finals, whatever. And I was literally like in the grocery line afterwards on the phone with my mom talking about it. And I think I said something along the lines of like, yeah, I mean, I guess really at the end of the day, if I think about it, even if I had an orchestra job, I'd probably get bored so quickly. You know, you're doing the same thing every day, and you go in and you have rehearsal, and then you go practice, and then you play the concert, and then you go to rehearsal, and you practice and you play a concert. And my mom said something along the lines of like, well, yeah, Nicole, you've always just done your own thing. I don't know why you ever thought you would work well working for somebody else and like doing what somebody else is telling you to do. And like hearing her say that, just like it really like, that's when it fully sunk in. Like, oh, like, yeah, you're right. Because I've just always been that person that like, I just intrinsically don't like being told what to do, you know? Like, I'm
Mm.
that person that, like, if you tell me, like, oh, you can't do da da da, da, like, I'm gonna go do it, obviously, you know? So, yeah, it was definitely a process and a transition, but it's that like cliche quote, like, I'm so glad I didn't end up with what I thought I wanted.
Hmm. Yeah, that's so interesting. So you are not still doing that, performing once in a while, or do
Well,
you?
I do, yeah, I do still perform. I don't do any teaching because I never really like enjoyed teaching private flute lessons. But yeah, I do still perform. Like in March, I was over in Florida for a week performing with an orchestra there. So I feel like now that I'm not putting like all of this pressure on myself to like, oh, flute has to be your full-time income, it gives me so much more freedom because now, like, I mean, in the music world, any creatives are probably familiar with this, but like, you know, it's notorious for the gigs and the jobs being like pay is just shit, you know?
Mm.
And so it's like now I have the ability to like, I don't have to feel like I have to say yes to everything because I have to pay my bills, you know? It's like my bills are already paid. So when people ask me for music related things, if I'm like, hell yeah, that sounds cool as fuck, like let's do it. And like if it pays well to be worth my time, like yeah, let's do it, you know? But then on the flip side, I don't have to feel that pressure to like, oh, this is like a shitty gig, or they're, you know, they want me to drive 2 hours away and they're only paying me $100. Like, no, you know? So
Mm.
it has really given me a lot more freedom with music now, I think.
It sounds like that could also build some of the joy back into it for you, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
because if it's a slog and it was the thing that you loved, it stops being the thing that you love. But if you can kind of pick and choose now, it's just sort of like the cherry on top of everything else, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely the place that I got in with music, which I didn't even like necessarily realize it in the moment because I was just so like, you know, one track mind, like I need to practice, I need to win an audition, da da da, da. But like I wasn't enjoying it, you know,
Mm.
and that's something that in that mourning period I kind of realized and finally like admitted to myself, like, okay, Nicole, like you never actually enjoyed the process of this. Like what you actually enjoyed is being on stage performing, and then afterwards everybody's coming up and giving giving compliments and like, oh, all the applause. It's like that Lady Gaga song, Applause, right? It was very much that, but I never enjoyed the process of it, right? Versus now with what I do with marketing, with my agency, like there have been nights where I'll literally stay up until like 3 a.m., like working on a launch plan or like writing a new website page or whatever. And like I'll look at the clock and I'm like, oh shit, it's like 3 a.m., versus like a lot of times previously when I was practicing, it would be like, I'm checking the clock every minute, like, oh my God, am I done yet?
When will I be done? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Another thing I want to touch on, I kind of wonder if a through line for multi-passionates is this needing to march to the beat of our own drum thing. Because I feel like as I meet more and more people like me and like you, I feel, because as you were talking, I was like, oh my God, that is so me. Tell me not to do it and I will go out right now and I will do the thing. And I
Yeah.
knew I was never meant to work for someone else. Like I have a friend who calls himself unemployable. And I laughed and I was like, that's me, not if it means working for someone else. So I sort of wonder if it's that freedom seeking, like through line of integrity. Like I'm going to do what works best for me, even if it takes me a minute to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you
I,
say
to-
that's
I
true?
totally, I totally agree with that. And I think, I mean, of course, everybody's going to have different values on this, but like for me personally, the biggest thing was freedom and flexibility because
Mhm.
I am very much like we only get one life. I am not here to spend my life every single day, all day working for somebody else to put more money in your pocket. And then you're going to have the power to tell me when I can and can't take off and how many times a year I can go see my family and tell me what I am worth making, like that is just like that gets under my skin so
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
like this is not why we are here on this planet. Like I am here to live life and like go experience and be able to travel and be able to pick up and like last week, go to Miami for a week if I want to and go like see my friends, or like it's literally what, it's a Thursday, a random Thursday. Like I probably am not going to work today. Who knows? Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But it's like
Amazing.
you can't make those decisions when you're working for somebody else. And so that's like it was very much like a principle thing to me where it's like I just don't take kindly to other people trying to control my actions. I'm just like that just like doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. So talk to me about how, you basically all you had ever done was put your focus into music and then suddenly you're deciding to start your own thing. How did you know what to start? How did you know what you liked? Like where did that come about?
Yeah, so the transition into marketing, it's really funny with that because I had been doing marketing for a really long time, but didn't actually realize that's what I was doing. So, for example, when I started, I got my degrees from Florida State University. When I started at FSU, even as a freshman, I was working in the Office of Admissions part time, and one of the things that I would occasionally help with was their social media team, right? And when they needed help with that, and so doing a lot of that, and then my 9 to 5s afterwards. I was working in the medical industry, but eventually they ended up transitioning me into helping with marketing and stuff. And so like I redid websites, I was helping with PR, I was helping again with social media, putting events together. So I was like doing all of these things. And oh, I also neglected to say when I was in grad school, even I ran a woodwind quintet. And with that, like I put together tours, we were doing fundraising, we were commissioning new pieces. I like was able to get us a record deal offer, and like that's all marketing, but I just didn't really realize it. But then with the transition in my 9 to 5s and eventually getting into marketing and realizing like, oh, this is what I'm doing and I actually really enjoy this. Let's do more of this. And then, went to a couple other places doing it. And then eventually it was just kind of like, well, I'm seeing all of these results. Like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm seeing how it's working. So, like, I'm just going to do this for myself instead.
Yeah. So you were just picking up little tidbits about how to do what you did, like just organically.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of like inadvertently, like throughout college. And I just didn't really realize that's what I was doing until like
Mm.
in one of my 9 to 5s, it was actually like we had a meeting about like, oh, how can we reach a more millennial demographic? Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh my God, I had like statistics and charts and like ideas and I freaking dominated. And that's when like the owner pulled me aside and he's like, so you're clearly really good at this. And I feel like we're like not utilizing you well if we're not having you help with this side. Like, do you want to start helping with marketing? I'm like, yeah, great. That sounds cool. Let's do that. And so then I started getting like the more formal training and going to other places and just doing their marketing. So it was kind of a doing it, but didn't really realize what I was doing until somebody else was like, hey, actually, you're good at this. Like, let's have you do this more formally.
Okay, so you picked up the skills organically, but then got recognized for those skills and got a little bit more formal training that in turn segued into starting your own thing
Yeah.
with just a massive skill set at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so. I love how I think that we have a tendency to be good at lots of things because we are quick learners, and so then we start to like, I'm a copywriter, but I very often get asked by one of the companies that I copyright for to do like project management stuff, which who would have ever thought, it's not really related, but they know I'm detail oriented and that I never miss like a line in an email. So like it makes sense. It's just kind of funny how those things sort of evolve into something that never started out as what you thought it was going to be. So
I never in a million years would have imagined myself doing this for sure.
yeah, I love hearing these evolution stories. So we're going to like sidebar for a second because there's this other part of you that is so fascinating to me. How does one become a psychic medium and a paranormal investigator? Like, which came first? How did you develop those skills? Did you just wake up one day and you were like, I can also do this? Like, how did that go?
Yeah, so that's a whole story.
I'm sure.
Okay. So, I mean, I've pretty much been obsessed with paranormal stuff like literally since I was a kid. And growing up, one of my aunts, she would always tell like scary stories and ghost stories and watch ghost movies with me. And so I was just really fascinated by it from a young age. But the other side of this is I've also had experiences my entire life. So like seeing things, or like it was kind of always the running joke in my family, like, oh yeah, you want to know if your house is haunted? Just take Nicole, you know? But I never really realized that that was abnormal, because to me it was just my normal, you know? And so I actually didn't put two and two together like, oh, I have abilities. When was it? It was 2020. And actually the thing that really did it for me was I have really bad social anxiety, and it will always be in places where there's a ton of people, right? So like going to a concert, or even like going to a grocery store, or going to an airport. Like I'm fine with flying, I don't mind planes, but it's just like being in an airport surrounded by all of the people. And it just got to a point where I was like pretty much barely functioning. And so I was going to therapy trying to figure this out. We were doing EMDR, and EMDR therapy, it's, in case anybody's not familiar with it basically kind of induces like a stream of consciousness in your brain. Like, you know, when you're trying to fall asleep and you're thinking about that like one awkward thing that you said 10 years ago, right? It's like, it's kind of like that. And so we were in one of our sessions, and just like everything that came up for me was death related. So like, you know, funerals that I've been to, or like experiences that I've had, whatever. And so at the end of the session, my therapist, she's like, you know, generally that's actually very uncommon with EMDR to have an actual theme throughout the entire thing. And so she started asking me more about like the experiences and how long I've been having them and what they're like, and da 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 da. And then finally she goes like, have you ever considered that maybe you have abilities? And I was just like, it felt like Twilight Zone, you know, like the room starts spinning. You're like, oh, like, no, but that would make my entire life make sense, huh? And so I got in the car after that session. And I mean, thankfully, one of our family friends, I actually used to babysit for her son when I was in high school. I messaged her because she's a medium and actually worked doing that for a really long time, and like literally everything that she had ever told me was either like spot on or came true. And so I called her, and we ended up having like a 5 hour FaceTime conversation. She's like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to figure this out for a while.
Wow. That just gave me the chills. So she totally knew, but needed you to come into it on your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah. And so but she was super sweet, spent so much time with me, kind of like walking me through, like protection stuff and blah, blah,
Mm.
blah, and like dealing with it. And so, yeah, since then I'm that like, I started out with having like two mentors. I have one mentor that I'm like still working with, still like actively working on these things, developing it, practicing. I feel like it's with all of these things, it's an ongoing process, just like business, always learning, right? Um,
Sure.
but yeah, so that's been a fun adventure. But when I figured that out, it definitely made a lot of things make a lot more sense.
Wow. It's fascinating. So is that what prompted you to start a podcast at that point or?
So the podcast, I actually have had that idea in the back of my head for years, like years and years, because I love, like, I'm that person. If I travel to a new city, I'm taking a ghost tour. Like, if there are notoriously haunted places, I'm going there. Like, I will
Yes.
go walk around the cemetery just for fun, like that's
Yes.
me. It's just who I am. And so I actually had really been interested in starting a paranormal podcast for a really long time, just to mainly just like selfishly to give myself a reason, an excuse to like, oh, go investigate these haunted places, But I didn't really have any friends here in Austin that were into that. In fact, most of them are like, no, I want absolutely nothing to do with that.
God,
Um,
same. And that's why I'm so happy to have met you.
yeah, and I'm like, oh, you guys. But anyway, so then I had a friend, Devin. He moved to Austin, and he also, come to find out, was into paranormal things, whatever. And so we're like texting back and forth, and I'm like, so like scale of 1 to 10, like how interested would you be in maybe starting a paranormal podcast? And he's like, 11, let's do it. So that's who I originally started the podcast with. And yeah, it was mainly, to be honest, just like selfishly, I really wanted to go like check out haunted places,
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
it's definitely evolved into a lot more than that. So a lot more than I was expecting, I think.
I've listened to a couple of your episodes. It's really cool. Is there you acting as a channel in every single episode, or is that just happens to be the ones I listen to?
Yeah, so I think there's only two investigations that we've done where we didn't really like utilize my abilities fully, but those were investigations where like I already knew the history of the place going
Ah,
in.
okay.
And so aside from those situations, generally the way that we conduct investigations is, Taylor, she's our researcher. She goes super in depth on the history of the location. She interviews the people there. She's digging up, property records, death records, anything she can get her hands on. So when we go in, she pretty much already knows everything. Then when we go in, I'm kind of like first line of defense for our investigation. So they bring me in, see what I pick up on, because there have been a couple times where I like find things that Taylor didn't even know in the research. And then she'll go back and be like, oh shit, like that was right, which is, I mean, of course, nice for me, because like I'm still in the phase where like 99% of the time I'm like, oh my God, I'm just like going crazy. What am I doing here?
Mhm.
But so we bring me in first, and then after I've done my walk of the location, then Taylor will go through and tell me all of the history, the reports, the accounts, da 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 da. And then we go in fully as a team to do the actual investigation portion. So we like to utilize all aspects, the history, me, plus an actual investigation. And I know there are a bunch of, there's shows, other podcasts, whatever, well, where they'll kind of do like maybe like the research and bring in a medium, or they'll do the research and do an investigation. We really like utilizing all of them, because I feel like, I mean, so many people are just so like, they're so skeptical. And I mean, even if you're not skeptical and open to it, of course, like listening to a podcast, like, well, you probably don't know me personally. So, like, sure, of course, it's natural to have some like skepticism. But we found that by having like the actual like research piece of it, plus like if I'm picking up on something and then we have like equipment that's also like literally documenting things, it's a lot harder to refute, you know? And so for us, it feels a lot more like solid of evidence.
Yeah. So because you work for yourself, you have built a life where you can like take off on these adventures and do this paranormal investigation kind of when you feel like it.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's so great. And so also I read that you are teaching mediumship classes.
Yeah, so I actually my most recent venture, yeah, I'm going to be working with the Glass Coffin, a shop here in Austin. I'm doing a paranormal event with them, helping out with a paranormal event this weekend, and then I'm actually going to be teaching a series of mediumship classes there as well. And then we also have started doing live like events and seances at Minx and Muse, which is the dance studio that I go to here in Austin. So big shout out, Minx and Muse, we love them. But yeah, so it has definitely turned into a lot more than I thought it ever would be with all of these other opportunities. Yeah.
Wow. So you also dance.
Yes, I take pole classes at Minx and Muse, and it's super hard, but it's like the like good kind of challenge, you know, where you
Hmm.
get kind of addicted to it. You're like, oh my God, this is so much fun. So yeah, I take in all of my free time, also take dance classes. Yeah.
That's where I was going with this. I'm sure everyone listening is wondering, like, beyond like just the running the business part, which is already huge. There's all of these other pieces, and sometimes you play flute, and sometimes you go on an investigation. How do you schedule out your time? Like, do you have a time management hack that is like super secret, that is the answer to everything? How do you do it?
I mean, yeah, my secret is passive income, to be honest. Like, this is why
Mm.
a lot of what I focus on in my business is digital course based, because I knew when I first started, going back to talking about like the values and, letting other people dictate my life, like, I knew that I wanted to have a life that I could do whatever I want when I want. I knew that I wanted to be able to pick up and go travel to Miami for a week or whatever. Like, I knew that that was kind of the lifestyle that I wanted. And so what I see a lot when it comes to especially entrepreneurs is especially in the beginning, we just kind of build our business and it's just like, I just need to make money. So we're doing whatever we can, right? I am kind of the opposite. I reverse engineer pretty much everything. And this is something that I work with like all of my clients on too. I'm like, we need to figure out what you want your actual life to look like first, right? And then we're going to build your business to support that. So for me, since I really value and prioritize having a lot of freedom and flexibility in my schedule, I knew that I wasn't going to want to do like, oh, one-on-one coaching and that's all I do, right? Because then I'm going to have a back-to-back schedule and be on calls all day, every day.
Mhm.
So that's why I built it where a majority of my income is coming in from my digital courses. And yeah, like I still do launches for them, but I also have a lot of systems in place where those sell passively on the back end for me. And sure, we have group coaching calls, but even with the group coaching calls, that's maybe what, like 3 hours a month, maybe.
Mhm.
So not that much. And then I have an agency as well, which is the more done for you, but like I have a team. So I do the bookings, will send out the contracts, the invoices, I final, proof, like check everything. But at the end of the day, like my team, they're the one that actually like they're building the things and doing the work, so it really like I structured my business very intentionally to allow me to have a schedule like that. Now, I do want to preface this with it did not happen overnight. Like, it has taken me years to get to this point. And I mean, it's definitely like there are ebbs and flows, right? Like sometimes there's a really busy season where I might be like working my ass off like 12 hours a day for like a week, but it's more rare that that happens now. And I will say the other side of this is kind of tied to that is like having processes and systems that are automated for you. So
Mhm.
I'm very much like, if there are things that I have to do more than once in my business. So like, okay, creating content for Instagram or posting Instagram stories or sending out emails or invoicing, invoice reminders, whatever. I'm always asking myself, is there a way that I can automate this? Right. And if there's not, is this something that I can outsource? So those are also things to keep in mind, is like, if there's a way to automate it, yeah, I'm probably going to figure it out, because like, to be honest, I want to like do as little work as possible, which I realize can sound kind of lazy, but it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, if you can set up a system that's going to automate it for you, like, why wouldn't you, like, work smarter, not harder.
Absolutely. And if you are a multi-passionate person, finding the time to do all of the things that light you up, that is impossible unless you are automating.
Yeah.
I love the prioritizing the passive income, because I think that is huge. Having a team is another thing that I talk about on, and again, like you say, that you build that over time, but making that the goal. Those are all fantastic tips. I know that you love strategy, like
Yeah.
creating so when it comes to creating a marketing strategy, what is one of the biggest mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making? Is it just not that focus on passive income from right out of the gate, or is it something else?
That's a really good question. And well, I think one of the biggest overall ones I see is kind of what I just mentioned, that people will build things for the right now versus
Mhm.
for the future, right? And I'm like, that's completely backwards. Like, if you are trying to get to where I'm at, you need to plan your business out from the very beginning to start getting it structured in that way. Because again, like, it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years, most likely scenario, of you putting these systems in place and really implementing things to get it to that point, so really like making sure that you're reverse engineering from like, where is the place that you want to be, and you need to start from the very beginning trying to get stuff set up that way. And then the other thing, it's kind of related to that, but short term versus long term. I see a lot of people, again, focused on the right now, right? So they're going to implement more short term strategies, and like, oh, I'm going to do this pop-up sale for da 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 da, and oh, I need more tickets sold for this, so we're going to do this sale for that, or I need, it's like focused on how do I get money right now. But if
Mhm.
all you're doing is that, it's ultimately like, at the end of the day, that's not sustainable for the long term, right? Because that's how you keep yourself in hustle mode, because
Yeah.
you're always having to be on, you're always having to look for those, how can I get money right now? Really, if you are creating an actual marketing plan in place, yeah, sure, you need some of those short-term strategies. Like, unless you're somebody where, like, for me, for passive income and digital courses, one of the reasons I did that is because I want to have income coming in for months down the road. I want to have, say, like, thousands of dollars coming in for the next 6 months or the next 12 months, so that way I don't have to worry so much about those short-term plans. But if you're not in that place, yeah, you need to have those short-term plans, but you also need to focus on the long-term marketing plans, right? So what are your plans that are going to work for you, not just right now, but it might take, some investment right off the bat to get it set up, some time, some work, but they're going to keep working for you for years down the road, right? So like building a website that really utilizes SEO, search engine optimization, to make sure that it's going to show up on Google. But then even taking that a step further, it's like all of business, like everything is just a funnel, right? Like even with websites and SEO, cool. Even if we have that set up, we get people to your website, your top of your funnel, right? We get people there. But then what's on your website? Is your website built to convert? Right? Like, is it using conversion based design? Is it using conversion copywriting? Those are really important, because even if we get people to your website, if it's not set up that way, then whoops, spoiler alert, it's not going to convert, right? But let's
Mhm.
say you have that in place. Okay, so now our next layer down into the funnel, where what are you trying to convert them to, right? Are you trying to get them to opt into a freebie? Then that's going to put them into an email sequence, then that then is going to sell your course, right? So it's really thinking like strategically of the overall picture, versus the right now. And this is like another really good example of this. Oh God, this like drives me nuts. But so many people online are like, oh, grow your email list. You need to grow your email list, get people on your email list, make a new freebie. Every blog post should have a new freebie. Every podcast episode should have a new
Ah,
freebie. Da, da, da. And I'm like, no, where is that freebie going to? Do you have that freebie hooked up to a sales funnel that's then going to sell them into something? Because if
right.
not, like, fuck your freebie. It's not going to do anything for you. You're literally wasting your time and energy. Like, what are you promoting that for? Like, if it's not directly hooked up and leading to something that's going to potentially lead to a sale for you, it's a waste of time. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is like people just focus on the step one, right? Or like the surface level or the right now. And I'm like, if that's all you're doing, that is not strategic. And at the end of the day, it's just a waste of time. So that's why I'm so big on like reverse engineering everything, because then that really forces you to zoom out, look at the big picture. How can I put these pieces in place that are ultimately going to lead to those conversions, right? Conversion for whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe it's for a sale, maybe it's for a new Instagram follower, whatever the goal is, it's different for everybody, but you have to know that first and then strategically build things out to lead to that goal.
Yeah, that's such good advice because I think like even for me, make a lead magnet and you're like, okay, I made a lead magnet, but you have that lead magnet there's the next step is where is that going? And I feel like that's what's left out of everyone who's like, okay, you need to make a lead magnet. You assume that getting someone on your email list, you're done. But
Yeah.
you're not, you're
No,
not.
that's
Then
like
you've got people sitting on your email list and nothing else is happening.
yeah, exactly. It's like that is literally just the first drop in the bucket, and so even with
Yes.
like the stuff that I'm talking about now with digital courses, on my current promotions is like, yeah, like creating a digital course is amazing, but like that is literally just your very first drop in the bucket. What are you going to do after you have it? You're going to pop it up on your website and like hope for sales? Because spoiler alert, you're probably going to hear crickets. Like, what funnel are you getting in place? What's your marketing strategy? How are you going to get sales? What are your income goals with it? Do you want it to replace your one-on-one work fully? Because that strategy is going to look a heck of a lot different if you're like, oh, I just need like a couple $100 a month. It's like there's all of these other pieces where it's like, yeah, great, like do the thing, amazing. I'm so happy that you have an idea and you're motivated and we're going to do it. Like, fuck yeah. But also, like, let's make sure that you're making it worthwhile and this is actually going to lead to something for you.
Everything has an intentional action that goes to a next step, right?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's a great segue into talking about the program that you're launching right now. So tell me a little bit about it and what people will learn if they sign up.
Yeah, so digital course partnership, that's my program that I am currently launching. It is a very deep dive on digital courses, on creating the content, all of the questions that people want to know, like how do I actually record it? What length do the videos need to be? How do I create the curriculum to make sure the students are going to get really great results? What's the tech of all of this? Where's the best tech platforms to set this up on? Doing a beta launch, because I'm very big on like, okay, let's get you paid to create the course, right? Like, don't just like sit here for freaking months creating the course and then like launch it and, crickets. Like, no, let's get paid first to create the course. We're talking about launching strategies. We talk about, okay, what are you doing after you have the course, scaling it. And it is going to be a 12-week live group program. So the calls will be live, Q&A at the end. Everybody will get 30-minute hot seat coaching calls with me. And by the end of the program, you will have a completed digital course. Voila.
Amazing. Amazing. So where does the partnership piece come into it, right? Because that's something specific to this program.
Yeah. So scaling with partners, kind of how we were talking about, creating your digital course is kind of the first drop in the bucket, right? So once you have your course, how are you going to scale it? I have very strong opinions on this, but needless to say, what most people recommend here is like, oh, build a freebie and then run ads to it. But like, okay, well, if we look at running ads, to hire somebody to run Facebook ads for you, and Facebook ads specialist, it's going to be like, $3,000 to $4,000 a month just to pay the ad specialist. Then ad spend, you're looking at like minimum $1,500 a month. And then time frame, you're looking at probably about 6 months for the algorithm to kind of learn your audience, learn the targeting, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, okay, unless you're like, if you have like 30 grand just chilling in your bank account, and you're cool flushing that down the toilet and maybe never seen any of it back, like, cool, like you do you and go run ads. Like, I will support you. But like, that's not the case for most of us. So the way that I personally scale courses, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where how I have systems in place to scale my things on the back end. So I'm not always just having to live launch, because again, live launching, like, that depends on volume. That depends on you're having to constantly grow your audience. It relies on your own audience, right? But like, okay, let's be honest, like, I don't want to spend freaking 3 hours a day on Instagram doing engagement, trying to get, hundreds of
No.
followers. Like, that's so much work. Like, I don't have time for that. Um, so I personally scale on the back end using what I call the profitable partner system. It's basically just partnering up with people. You go do, a training class for their people on what your zone of genius is, right? At the end, you talk about your course. Anybody who buys, you give your partner a percentage of the sale. And like, for me personally, that just feels so much more aligned. Like, I would rather pay you as another entrepreneur and somebody who I actually like, and like, I want to support you, I want to support your business, versus like go sink that into Facebook. Not to mention conversion rates are also significantly higher. So the average funnel conversion rate that's considered like good in this industry is 2 to 3%. So that's what you would be looking at as like, I mean, ideally, like what your goal would be for like running, say, ads with partner campaigns. My average conversion rate is 20 to 25%.
Wow.
So that is a massive difference.
You're
So
piggybacking off of that audience's trust of that person.
exactly.
So they're vouching for you, and thereby they trust you by default, kind of. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So smart. Cause I was going to ask you, like, growth on the social platforms is frustrating as fuck. Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, you're making reels, and who has the time to make a reel every day and all of that. And so like, this is, if you were to look at growing an audience or growing your reach faster, you would think, this is a question, is partnering or collaborations are a better way to do that than just sort of like constant nose to the grindstone, putting out more content?
Well, yeah, I mean, content is not a growth strategy, to be honest. And this is something that I'm like, I actually, a former client, she started working with some other coach that like convinced her of this, that like, oh, just keep posting reels and hope for it to go viral. And I'm like, that's not a strategy. Like, crossing your fingers and hoping, that is not a strategy, my friend. So like, you do you, like, I'm going to support whatever you want to do. It's your business, but like, content is not a growth strategy. But yeah, when it comes to Instagram, I mean, growth strategies, it's all so dependent on what your actual goals are, right? So for me, like, I kind of have two in place. So for me, the partner campaigns, that's more of that's a back end sales strategy in my brain. So it's a back end sales strategy that I use specifically to grow, like get more people into my courses, right? That's leading directly to sales. Yeah, sometimes, sure, of course, some of the people then come over and follow me, but it's not necessarily going to be like, oh, I'm going to get like hundreds of new people, da, 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 da. Really, the growth strategy on Instagram is doing Instagram engagement. So going out, finding those new accounts who are in your exact target audience, and just legitimately connecting with them, building relationships. And this is one of the things where I know, like, oh, everybody does Instagram engagement like differently, talks about it differently, but like the way that I approach it, I'm sure we all hate this. Like, we've all had it. The people who like slide into your DMs, like, hey girl, tell me about your business. And wait, like, first of all, like, if you read my bio, you would see that. Like, get the fuck out of here with that. So I'm not talking about that type of engagement at all. It's literally like going out and finding people and like you find their profile and you're like, oh yeah, cool. Like I vibe with this person. They seem cool, whatever. Like I genuinely would want to get to know them as a human, right? And you leave like a comment genuinely like trying to get to know them as a human, and you kind of like re-engage them as well. This is another thing that I see with Instagram engagement is somebody will be like, oh, I'm gonna go, find new account, and then they'll like comment whatever, like literally once and then dip. It's like, no, like you have to do, it's like literally like how would you build a friendship with somebody in real life? You're not going to send them one text message and be like, hey girl, what's up? Or like, oh my god, cute shirt, and then like literally never talk to them again. Like that's not going to result in anything. Like we need to be human beings and like interact with people in a way where you're like finding people that you're like, yeah, you're in my target audience, but you're also cool as fuck, and like let's get to know each other. Like that's really what it comes down to. But that's like how you're going to grow. And yes, it is a slower method of growth. However, I'm very much quality over quantity, right? Like, and like literally, I've worked with somebody she had 500,000 followers on Instagram, but nothing she promoted was converting because she got all of those followers just from like doing giveaways and whatever. So it's like, of course, like the people she had in her audience didn't actually give a fuck about her. They didn't know her. They didn't like trust her. They were just there because she was doing giveaways.
Yeah.
So it's very much like it really, like it doesn't matter how many followers you have on Instagram. It's really all about the quality. And I mean, at the end of the day, that's also what's going to help lead to conversions, right? Like if you're okay, like for example, like DCP, yeah, it's a higher ticket program. It's like $5,000. You're not going to just like find one cute picture of me on Instagram and be like, yeah, you're cute, let me pay you $5,000, like you want, I mean, like if you do, like great, awesome. My Venmo's at Nicole Riccardo, but but like usually like they want to like get to know you first. They want to see your likes, like get to know your personality. They want to have some sort of connection with you. They want to see you in action first, see maybe you do some Instagram lives, training, whatever, and then eventually they'll be like, okay, yeah, cool, like what the fuck you're talking about, and I feel confident that you can actually help me with this, and like we've already started building this rapport and this relationship, and like I trust you because we're friends. Like great, let's do this. It makes it a much easier decision. So yeah, anyway, all that to say, quality over quantity.
Yeah. Wow. I just feel like there was so much good stuff in this conversation that I think that people need to hear, because I don't necessarily feel like the truth is always what filters down when you are trying to start a business as a digital course creator and like grow your audience on Instagram, and you're told to make a reel every day and cross your fingers. Like I've heard that so many times. So thank you for saying that is not a strategy. Like,
yeah,
it isn't. Yeah. Oh
yeah, if
my
you ever
gosh.
need anybody to come bust some myths, I'm that person that says the shit that nobody else wants to say. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that because we need to hear it. And it's very disheartening, I think, to buy into that other stuff, hook, line, and sinker, and then have like launch and have crickets happen.
Yeah. And I mean,
So
literally,
yeah.
like, it's just because, like, they're so good at marketing, it's like just because, like, you're good. It's like used car salesman, right? Like, yeah, they can, like, make anything sound like super amazing and, like, ooh, yeah, super fancy. Yeah. Ooh, I want
Mm.
that. But then you get in there and it's like, you drive it around the block and it fucking breaks down. I feel like, honestly, that's how, like, most of the shit, in, like, the online space is now. And so that's why, I mean, one of the biggest things, like, I feel like I do post on this, like, at least once a month, where it's like, do your freaking due diligence as a consumer, right? Like, oh, if you want, like, if you're thinking about taking this course and this person is teaching, like, one of the portions is on, like, here's how to design your website. Okay, well, maybe let's stop and think for a second. Does that person design websites professionally? Because if not, you probably shouldn't be listening to what they're telling you. It's like literally, like, just like take 2 seconds and like don't get swept up in all of the marketing, and like look at their actual credentials, like look at what they do. Yeah, I will not
Yeah.
continue ranting on that because I could do that all day.
No, I love it. I just, for those of you listening, if you want no bullshit, come to Nicole.
Yeah, yeah,
She will give it to you straight. And I appreciate that so much. I could easily keep you on this call for so many more hours. There's like so much more I want to ask you, but out of respect for your time, why don't you tell me where people can find out more about you, learn about DCP and your podcast, all of it?
Yeah. Okay. So, the place that I hang out most is Instagram. You can find me on there just at my name, Nicole Riccardo, Riccardo. If you're interested in checking out any of my courses or anything, that's all on my website, just NicoleRiccardo.com. But for DCP specifically, it is currently in the link in my bio. Or, I mean, like honestly, if you have questions about anything, just DM me. That's cool too. And then my paranormal podcast, and now for something completely different. My paranormal podcast is called The Real Ghosts of. We did that kind of like a play on The Real Housewives of, because we're sassy. So yeah, The Real Ghosts of, you can find us on, I mean, anywhere you stream podcasts.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. And go listen to that show. I was like, I'm just for research purposes, I'm going to listen to a little bit. And then like 4 hours had gone by. So be careful of falling down a rabbit hole with that, because it will definitely happen. This has been such a delight, Nicole. You are so full of knowledge, and I really appreciate you spending this time with me today.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Good, good. I will, yeah, you guys, I'm going to drop all of these links in the show notes. Be sure to go check out Nicole. And yeah, I'm so glad to have you in my orbit now, and we will be in touch a lot more frequently for sure.
Yay, spooky friends.
I love it. I love it. Awesome. All right. I will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Oh my gosh, you guys, did you just find that so full of useful information and honest stuff that's really applicable to being an entrepreneur? I absolutely loved it. I hope you guys got a lot out of it as well. If you found this content valuable, you can leave a tip at buymeacoffee.com/Jennie O'Connor, or even better, you can support the show for free by rating and reviewing. I would love you forever, because reviews help me get found in the sea of other podcasts so that my message can get out to other multi-passionates who need to hear it. And please do come join me over on the socials. I am at Your Creative Fairy Godmother. I hang out on Instagram mostly, and I would love to see you there. Before I sign off, do you dream of combining all of your loves into a business venture that will make the daily grind less like drudgery and more like play? If so, I am opening the doors for the Multi-Passionate Master Plan next month. In this 6-week group coaching program, you will learn how to prioritize your loves and optimize your time and energy so that you can create financial and time freedom that will ultimately allow you to do all of the things that call to your heart while making a damn good living at the same time. If you need that in your life, head on over to JennieO'Connor.com/masterplan to jump on the wait list. This step is important, you guys, because folks on the wait list will get a notification when I open the doors for 48 hours to save 40% off the cost of the program. So if you miss out on being notified when I open the doors, you will miss out on getting a ton of value for a literal steal. So go jump on the wait list today. And until next time, remember, the person who follows the crowd won't go any further than the crowd. The person who walks alone will find themselves in places no one has ever been before. Now get on out there and do the thing.